That's what winter is. An exercise in remembering how to still yourself, then how to come pliantly back to life again. As the holiday season flies by and we move into the winter months, we are given an opportunity to slow down and really enjoy the process of making garments. I explored this slower process in making my dream winter coat, and now I get to share what I learned with you. Today, I'm going to be making myself a winter coat. I'm going to be making myself a winter coat that is heavily inspired by the winter coat that Bella wears in the movie Poor Things. And if you know me, you know that I wear my Nadja coat as fashion pretty often, and I just recently made my Rosie coat and I wore that in New York as fashion as well. So I kind of want to blend these lines of like a costume versus a garment and how we can actually make costumes and cosplay pieces that can be doubled as garments in our regular daily life. So I want to make this jacket that I can wear all winter long, and then in about a week or two I'm going to take some photos of myself in a cosplay similar to Bella's. I will be borrowing a wig from my friend because I'm not actually going to be cosplaying Bella. Well, someday I want to. I do want to make this costume right over here. That's for a later date. So I'm going to borrow a wig and I'm going to just throw together pieces from my wardrobe to recreate an image like this so that I can still kind of have that cosplay and share it online, and then I can wear the coat as my winter coat. All right, so the first thing we need to do is discuss the design. Here's Bella's design. Let's talk a little bit about the design elements that I absolutely love. This massive sleeve. Look at how big and great this big, huge, puffy sleeve is. I also just love the length, but I think something that, because it's a winter coat, I might have to consider is bringing it to my knee. In the mock-up, I'll go to my knee, and then I'll pin it up to see how I want it a little fitted in the waist, and then I want it to come out and flare out a little bit more, like so. The other thing I don't love is these massive buttons, and also it feels like the buttons kind of go off like that. I could be wrong. I don't know, but I don't love the buttons. And then she also has like a lapel here and then like a lapel here. So I have Victorian boots. They're not exactly as high as this. I think I actually have a pair of gray tights that have holes in them, so I might modify them a little. And then I already have ideas of what I can wear under this, although it doesn't matter too much because obviously I'm gonna borrow Amanda's wig. And so there we go. There's a cosplay. That is that. Let's talk about patterns really quick. The main pattern I want to use is this Angela Clayton pattern. And I really do actually want to follow this kind of lapel line here. This is really important to me. I do not want mine to button up all the way. Two reasons. I love wearing scarves. I wear scarves all the time. I really do want to kind of have this more feminine fit and flare type thing going on. Obviously, we're going to cut this here, probably even shorter, but I do love how like this looks. So we're going to kind of take it in that way and have it flare out this way. Costuming wise, Bella's is a little bit more triangular because it is supposed to kind of represent male fashion. And in this part of the play, she's trying to take ownership as a woman and do the things that men are allowed to do. And there's pushback. And so obviously they're going to put her in a huge sleeve that looks like a massive shoulder. So you see how her shoulders look massive. And then also men's coats aren't always very fitted. And they're also more triangular versus like curved. So that is kind of why we get that look for her. This makes complete sense costuming wise. This will make sense fashion wise. So I have two options for sleeves. This sleeve, this is the Nadja jacket that I made. The biggest thing I have to remember on it is to lengthen the sleeves by at least 2 inches, possibly 3. Then there's also this jacket. This pattern I borrowed from Jedi Amanda. She used this pattern for her Nadja jacket. So I'm gonna make in my mock-up one of these sleeves and one of these sleeves. And then I'm gonna kind of like see which one I like better based on the design of this. Let's talk about materials. This entire process started with swatches. So I got this many swatches for this project. I divided them up by weight. So this felt a little too thin and this felt a little too thin. So these two, they're out of here. This one I actually really liked, but texturally, like when you look at it, I was like, ooh, that looks really, really flat. Like it doesn't have that much texture versus this, which, you know, I might have to play with the sharpness on this, but if you can see how much texture there is here. And then this by far, this herringbone was my favorite, like absolute downright favorite. Okay, so I narrowed it down to these two from there. And then I looked at the price. So this one was $60 a yard and this one was $30 a yard. So as much as this is by far my favorite, budget-wise, knocked that out of the park and we went with this. I like how this has a really good weight to it. And again, this texture is great. Use my link in the description to save yourself 10% and help, support this channel because I am a Mood affiliate. Now let's talk about this material. I knew that I wanted to line it with either sunburnt orange or like a mustardy yellow. My two favorite gowns that Bella wears are the yellow gown, which Jedi Amanda made, and then this orange gown, which I am going to eventually make. So I knew I wanted to line my jacket with this material or with this color, one of these two colors. I couldn't find a good orange that I like just from pictures. And if I couldn't find a good orange from pictures, there was no way it was happening. So this is a viscose, a crepe de chine. It's kind of lightweight, but I kind of like that. It's nice and soft. This is what's going to go against my skin. You could just go with a black crepe de chine or a black lining material. I kind of wanted to be a little extra and have this on the inside. So these are the materials and I'll get my box and we can unbox them. All right, first up, the box. The most important part, muslin for a mock-up. So I got 2 of these 5-yard cuts because first of all, I think I might need a little bit more than 5 yards. Also because if I don't need more than 5 yards, now I have 5 yards. So I can do mock-up of other things. I also found some more muslin yesterday, but we're gonna pretend like, well, I didn't know about that, but like I feel dumb. So now I need to find a good place to store this so that I look there first. Plenty for future projects. There's some future projects coming up. This is so light. This is so light. This is our lining material. Oh, look at how yellow. This is almost like a green vomity yellow and I kind of love it. Ooh, look at that. Look at that. Smells like fabric. Did I smell my fabric like I smell my books? Absolutely. Last but not least, this is why this box is heavy. So first of all, wool is heavy. This kind of wool, this is wool coating. You have to understand that wool comes in multiple grades, just like most things fabric-wise. Oh, look at that. This is so textured. You didn't see that at all. Oh my. Oh, this texture. Oh my gosh. This is so beautiful. I love it. Okay, I'm super excited. Well worth it. I want to say budget-wise, I think I spent around $300 or $400. So just throwing that out there. Not that you have to spend that kind of money. Let's talk a little bit about some of the other things I got for this project. Just because we have great fabric, great lining fabric, doesn't mean that we have everything we need. So I did buy a couple different types of buttons. I am torn between gold buttons and black buttons. I did get 2 different types of buttons. These are metal. You can hear them. And they are about 1 inch. I think this one is exactly 1 inch and this is slightly under 1 inch. This is 23 millimeters and these are 25.5 millimeters. Let's open the bag from Wawak. Wawak is like a good supply store, like sewing supply stores. So like zippers, buttons. Personally, I went to Wawak for a couple things, couple utilitarian things. The first one being about bias tape. Normally I like to make my own bias tape, but I really didn't feel like making bias tape out of wool and I don't think I have any like cotton broadcloth single fold bias tape. I know I have double fold, but I don't have single folds. So I bought some bias tape. This is the most important reason why I went to Wawak. Most garment construction, at least in the like fashion space, needs interfacing. And you've probably all gone to Joann Fabrics and seen the wall of Pellon. Now, almost all of those, unless you get really lucky, are like a papery base that are typically like adhesive, like you adhere it in. This is a sew-in interfacing and it is in black as well, and it is a woven, so it's a fabric base interfacing. What that means is this can wash and wear like my garment. When you buy Pellon or some of these other ones, they are a papery base, and so washing them and wearing them can actually destroy them and break them down over time. And so while like it's great and accessible, when you want to make something that is going to last you about 10 years, which is what I hope this coat, guys, actually, like, let's be honest, I would love to be wearing this coat when I am like 90 years old with ridiculous hair and ridiculous glasses and like every piece of jewelry I own, walking down Chicago. You know, it's nothing. Like, I want to be wearing this coat forever. This is kind of what's going to be be the deal breaker. So yeah, let's now start cutting out our pattern pieces and make a mock-up. The first thing I'm doing is pulling a pattern from the sleeve pattern that I used previously and the pattern Amanda let me borrow. I won't be cutting or adjusting her pattern at all. I am just transferring the pattern in my size to pattern paper, and then I can lengthen and adjust the pattern from there. All right, so here we are with our mock-up. I really love the way that this is looking. So this is my nausea sleeve from my jacket that I made, and I think I said it wrong, but I also remember that it was a lot poofier on the top and not so full all the way around, whereas this is the nausea sleeve that Jedi Amanda used on her nausea jacket, and I love how just like super round and puffy it is. I really think that this is the winner for me sleeve wise. And also I forgot to mention, I might have, and I just might have forgotten that I did, but she actually used this sleeve for her yellow dress for Bella as well. So I think that like we're getting somewhere with this. My arms are really long. I lengthened this by 2 inches, but I think I'm gonna lengthen it 1 more. And just because I like my jacket sleeves pretty long, like this is honestly like the perfect length, but I also know that this is probably not realistic. So I'm gonna lengthen it at least 1 more inch, maybe 2 more inches, because I really like long jacket sleeves. That's just how I am. I also have very long limbs. The other thing is this hem isn't like perfect yet. I was gonna kind of shear it up when I get the wool version put together, but it is slightly asymmetrical. Like it's a little bit longer in the back, and if you have seen my video on making a really short skirt, I actually like that because I'm very insecure about my butt sticking out in things. And even though this is a jacket and it'll likely be worn over a bunch of stuff, I still kind of want it to have this asymmetrical look. And then also because there's so much fullness in the back, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it'll work. The other thing I need to adjust is that there's no pockets in this, and I have to have pockets. Like that's just me. They're just gonna be a side seam pocket. I'm loving the collar and the, you know, the little bit. I did accidentally sew this inside out. Like these panels, like I put the first one on and it was inside out, and I was like, you know what? Who cares right now? It's a mock-up, so it won't look like this. It'll be the opposite, but you get the gist. Oh, so it is kind of baggy, if you can't tell, in the waist, but I'm gonna be sewing this with wool, so I think having that extra like room for forgiveness will actually be good. And then I can always, before I throw the lining into it, before I put the lining in or before I like finish it up, I can always take it in if I need to, but the wool is gonna add thickness, especially here in the back. So I'd rather have a solid 1.5 inches or 2 to work with. Plus, like, let's be honest, in the winter, I gain a little bit of weight sometimes because I eat more baked goods. So having it fit a tiny bit loose and not being like super tight is probably for the best. Yes, I'm gonna cut some wool now and some lining, and we're gonna get going on constructing this. Oh, I have to rip this apart first though. That's fun. Before we cut into our fabric, I decided I was going to read over all of the instructions for this coat. There's a lot of hand sewing, which you know I love, and there's just a lot of steps in general. I think there's 26 steps. But then again, oh no, there is like 34. I would say we're gonna be around 28 to 30 because I'm not doing the sleeves exactly the same. But aside from that, we're doing most of the rest of it the same, and we're adding pockets. So maybe there will be around 30 some odd steps. I read over the instructions. Then I wanted to show you guys something really cool. Mood did this really great post about working with wool, tackling wool coating challenges. So 5 tips for perfect results. Pinking shears or a rotary cutter is going to be one of the first tips. So we will be putting our mat out and using our rotary cutter. Shifting fabric while sewing. I already planned to actually use my walking foot because of how thick the material is. So I'll get my walking foot out. Pressing without damaging. So this is kind of where I'll use a pressing cloth, and I made a pressing cloth in a video before. I'm going to use a pressing cloth to press everything. A lot of it's getting hand hand stitched down anyway, so that's pretty cool. Oh, and also wool doesn't fray, and so you'll see when I go through this process. Yeah, so let's play with some wool first. I used a size 90/14 titanium needle from Oregon Needle Company, and I lengthened my stitch length to 3.5 millimeters for my first sewing test. I will admit, the first test was with the industrial dual action foot that comes with my machine, and that test was really not good. So I switched to the normal dual action foot and lengthened the stitch length to 4.0 or 4 millimeters, and we were rocking and rolling. So now I guess I get to start cutting out my fabric. After my fabric is all cut out, I can flatline the lining pieces to the wool with the wrong sides together. For the side front piece with the dart in it, I actually cut the dart out of the wool when I cut the fabric out, and I will flatline along the dart before trimming back the yellow lining fabric and sewing up the dart. So basically every other step or so is going to be just stitching these, like hand stitching these seams down. What I've been doing to do that is I've actually been tucking the lining in like this, and then I've been just whip stitching it down. It suggests to use embroidery thread, so I have this thread from Sulky. They actually sent me this entire thread case that is all hand embroidery thread. This is different from like your regular like machine sewing thread, but it's also different from your machine embroidery thread. So just putting that out there. I'm using this to basically whip stitch all of this down, and then I'll go ahead and whip stitch all of this down. I do press it first, and so this is kind of what it looked like. So I'll show you my whip stitch here in a second. So if you can see how it's all just stitched down and then you can't see anything on top. So I'll show you the whip stitch real quick, and then we will. For my sleeves, I stitched the gather stitches into the top of the sleeve after flatlining my lining in wool. Then I stitch my sleeve together, right sides together, gathering the longer sleeve side to fit within the markings designated on my pattern. Next, I sew one side of the single fold bias tape onto the right side of the sleeve hole, and then trim the fabric down, fold the bias tape, and pin it to whip stitch it down later. Alright, so I did not get nearly as far as I had hoped, but that's okay. I'm going to bring this to Chicago with me. It's going to be in the 50s, so I don't need a winter coat. I'm just going to wear like my normal jackets. But so what I'm bringing to work on in Chicago is I'm going to be hand sewing these down, and then I will be sewing these pleats as well. And these are going to get sewn together like to themselves and then stitched up here. And then the other thing I did was the sleeves, I added the single fold bias tape, and then I have actually like pinned them, and these are going to get hand stitched down as well as like this, so a lot of hand stitching. So like basically 2 sleeves and these 2 panels, and then when I come back I'll get a little bit more sewing done. I'm going to kind of slowly work on this next week, but it can't be my primary focus because I have to launch dragon kits, so which are right over there, but this comes out after those get launched. So anyway, that's where we're at. A week later, I came back to the coat to sew up the center back seam. Starting at the skirt portion of the jacket, I stitched the center back seam from the pleat down. I slashed the corner to the seam allowance, and then I pin and stitched the center back seam from the pleats up to the top of the neck. Then I folded and pinned the pleats in the back and hand stitched them in place as instructed. There's a small gap in the center back seam that I decided to hand stitch down before I sewed the pleats down. I didn't notice this until I started working on the pleats, but I fixed it, so there we go. I added the front pieces to the side pieces. Then I added the bias tape to the front facing pieces. These are basically the front panel, but with interfacing flatlined to it instead of lining. This will stiffen it and make it better for the collar and for housing the buttons. Then I brought all of this hand sewing over to Alex's for a Lord of the Rings extended edition movie marathon.
I smell it in the air.
On the west, the ring is altogether evil.
This is Isildur's heir.
Now that I have returned from Middle Earth, let's finish this jacket. I let the jacket hang on my mannequin for like a week or maybe 2 at this point, and I trimmed up the hem so that it would be even. Then I added the bias tape exactly how I did previously, and I brought the jacket back over to the mannequin to pin it in place and make sure it all lined up nicely. We're getting close. So the pattern doesn't have like you do anything about the sleeve. So it doesn't have you finish this in any way. And like, I'm not gonna wear a coat that has all of this. So I actually literally 5 seconds ago just found this binding in my like fabric stash, and I think I have enough for both sleeves. So I think I'm gonna trim this down a little and then cover both sides with this binding, this bias tape, and then like that will be my sleeve. Yeah, I think that's good. And then I can start adding buttons. I am doing embroidered buttonholes. This is really, really incredibly thick because of how textured this wool is. Like any type, like ripping out embroidered or like a machine done in buttonholes, I feel like would be a pain and really destroy this fabric. So I'm just gonna go the extra step and hand do all of the, I think I'm doing 10 buttonholes. I haven't figured it out yet, but let's get these covered and then I can figure out buttonhole placement and all that jazz. I decided to do hand embroidered buttonholes for the jacket because 2 layers of wool and a layer of interfacing is just a bit too much for my machine buttonhole maker to consistently create great buttonholes. I marked where my hole was with chalk, and then using my snips, I sliced open my fabric, and with embroidery thread, I started at one end of the buttonhole and basically just wrapped the thread around the edge of the hole, making sure each stitch was touching the stitch before it. I realized that it was nearly impossible to see the thread when the buttonholes are done, and I actually really like that. For the buttons, I used a sulky embroidery thread and stitched them on the normal way I add buttons. I hid the thread tail under the button, stitched through the holes on the right side 3 times, moved to the left side and stitched through those 2 holes 3 times as well. And then I tied it off in the back, and then I ran the thread through the fabric to hide the thread tail. To some, it won't look like much, just a few panels of wool, some lining, and buttons. But to me, it's over 60 hours of love made one stitch at a time. It's warmth, it's rebellion, patience, laughs, and an entire Lord of the Rings extended edition marathon. It's a reminder to me that the time it takes to become the person I want to be is worth it. This jacket is an expression of who I am today and who I get to be tomorrow. Hi friends, I just wanted to end this video with a little bit of a wrap up of the year. You can expect from me next year. So for starters, this video was meant to be a combination of things, and it wasn't any of those things. It was supposed to talk about sustainability in cosplay. It was supposed to talk about how many of us cosplayers making garments that or making costumes that we are using as garments. Because the actual sewing process took so long, I did not get to do the research and deep dive that I had thought I was going to do, and I'm kind of okay with that because I feel like sustainability and then also like other cosplayers' journeys are like completely different videos, and so I'm gonna kind of table those and find ways to work with that in the future. But I just wanted to say that there was an original different premise to this, and it really just turned into accepting that like sometimes you have to slow down. If you want to make something that's going to outlive you, you have to give it the time it needs and learn how to enjoy that process on the way. Anyway, this year was crazy. I moved state. I did like 12 shows, I think, ran a marathon. I went to Europe. I got to do the Fête Gallant, which has been a dream of mine for years. It's been a really crazy year, and I couldn't thank everyone enough for still sticking with me even though I took such a long hiatus. It was worth it. I mean, like I had to. It's life, you know? And yeah, I got to make quite a few cool costumes and meet people and just have a grand old time and continue to share education with everyone. And then also I developed Dragon Kit, which I had intended to do in June, but again, I didn't know where my life was gonna go at that point when I was like planning out my year, and so here we are. So let's talk about 2025. So for starters, I will have a new video up in 2 weeks. I'm going to be including the process of making the monstrous crow that you see in this version here, but I'm actually gonna give myself a few days this week to finish it. There were 2 items that I didn't get to make for it, and I'm going to make them. If you wanna learn about all about this process and this event that I went to, that video is coming. That's in 2 weeks. I have a really cool sponsored video coming after that I'm not going to share with you anything about it yet. You'll see it when it goes up, but it's really cool and I'm exploring something I've never done before, so that's exciting. I did want to share my first 2 costumes for sure of the year. Like, already have the fabric for one. I'm working with a company on the fabric for another, but the first one is going to be Anne Boleyn from 6. I will be joining some friends to make this costume, and I think that we can explore group cosplays through the making of this and how you work together as a group to make a costume or a group costume. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited because I'm gonna do Agatha as Elphaba. If you've seen Agatha all along, you know about this, the Wizard of Oz episode, and I'm gonna do that costume, and I'm really excited because I had a company reach out to me wanting to work with me on it, so we're gonna see how that goes. But those are the kind of first 2 things you can expect from me this year. I am doing my best to stay on top of YouTube videos. I can't guarantee that I will have one out every 2 weeks. That is my goal, but I can't guarantee it, and I still have quite a few backlogged. So I really want to edit the C2E2 vlog from last year, because not only did I have just such a fun time at C2E2, but like I was watching my DragonCon vlog from 2023, I think. Yeah. And I was like, man, I love vlogging. So I might vlog more conventions. It is a different type of like editing, and I don't know, I might vlog more adventure or more conventions or even adventures, because I do photo shoots with Alex and things like that. So anyway, I don't want this to be too much longer, but I just wanted to thank you all so much for your continued support. It is still my dream to make YouTube my full-time job. I feel like I'm further from that than I've ever been, but I'm still here and I'm still doing the thing, and you know, I am teaching classes and making kits, and I'm doing whatever I can in my power to keep this train going. Whatever. So yeah, but thank you all so much for being here. And I also just wanted to share with you that I have the memberships here on YouTube. So if you're interested in supporting the channel and getting early access to videos, and then also I'll be announcing probably next week what my next project is once the final materials come. Not the next project, but what that like top secret, I won't share until it's done project. So I'll be announcing that over there. And yeah, I also have cute little emojis and that kind of stuff. It's just a really fun way to, I don't know, support the channel. And I dream that someday it'll be large enough that I could like sustainably do like, I don't know, like a weekly live stream and like a monthly exclusive video for just the members. I mean, a girl can dream, right? So yeah, that's kind of where we're at with that. And also feel free to use my affiliate links for anything so that it helps boost the channel. And if you're interested in buying a sewing machine, that really helps. I'm not gonna lie. And again, you get like one of the most amazing humans that will support you in that process of learning how to use it and all that. Holly Ann is the best. So anyway, that's all, and I just want to say Happy New Year, and I hope everyone has a lovely holiday season. As I am going to be releasing this, tomorrow is winter solstice. So tomorrow it'll be winter, and we're gonna learn how to love winter as much as we love fall. I hope everyone has a great week, and stay spooky, friends. Ah!